3 years have gone by. The sun has come up over 1,000 times. Summers and winters have cracked the mountains a little bit more, and the rains brought down some of the dirt. Babies that weren't even born before have begun talking regular sentences. And a number of people who thought they were right young and spry at the time have noticed that they can't bound up a flight of stairs without their hearts fluttering a little. All that can happen in 1,000 days. Nature's been pushing and contriving in other ways too. A number of young people fell in love, got married. Yep, the mountains got bitten away a few fractions of an inch. Millions of gallons of water have come by the mill, and here and there, a new home was set up under a roof. Almost everybody in the world gets married. In our town, there aren't hardly any exceptions. Most everybody climbs into their graves married. The first act was called The Daily Life. This act is love and marriage. There's another act coming up after this one. I reckon you can guess what that's about. So, 3 years have gone by. It's 1904, 7th of July, just after high school commences. That's about the time all our young people jump up and get married. As soon as they finish their last examination in solid geometry or Cicero's orations, they suddenly feel themselves fit to be married. Well, it's early morning. Only this time, it's been raining. It's been pouring and thundering. Mrs. Gibbs' garden there, Mrs. Webb's, drenched. All those bean poles and pea vines, drenched. All yesterday on Main Street, the rain looked like curtains being blown along. Huh? It may begin again any minute. There, you can hear the 5:45 for Boston. And here's Mrs. Gibbs and Mrs. Webb coming downstairs to get breakfast, just as though it were any ordinary day. Now, I don't have to tell the women in my audience that those two ladies they see before them, those two ladies cooked 3 meals a day. One of them for 20 years, the other for 40, and no summer vacation. They washed, cleaned a house, and brought up 2 children apiece. And never a nervous breakdown. It's like what one of those Middle West poets once said. You've got to love life to have life. And you've got to have life to love life. It's what they call a vicious circle.
Yeah, Bessie.
Here's Howie Newsom delivering the milk, and there's Cy Crowd delivering the paper just like his brother before him.
Good morning, Howie.
Morning, Cy. Anything in the papers I don't know?
Nothing much. Except we're losing just about the best baseball pitcher Grover's Corners ever had. George Gibbs.
Reckon he is?
He can hit around bases, too.
Yep, mighty fine ball player. Whoa, Bessie. I guess I can stop and talk if I have the mind to.
I don't see how he could give up a thing like that just to get married. Would you, Howie?
Can't tell, Cy. Never had no town that way. You're up early, Bill.
Seeing if there's anything I can do to prevent a flood. River's been rising all night.
Cy Crow's over here all worked up about George Gibbs retiring from baseball.
Yes, sir. That's the way it goes. Back in '84, we had a player side. Even George Gibbs couldn't touch him. They were packed tough. Went down the main and became a parson. Wonderful ball player. Howie, how's the weather look to you?
Oh, it ain't bad. Think it might clear up for good.
Morning, Howie. Think it's gonna rain again?
Morning, Mrs. Gibbs. It rains so heavy I think it should clear up.
I certainly hope it will.
How much do you want today?
Oh, Howie, I got a house full of relatives visiting me, So I think I need 3 milk and 2 cream.
My wife told me to tell you that we hope that they'll be very happy, Mrs. Gibbs. Know that they will.
Well, thank you, Howard. Tell you I hope it gets to the left.
Yeah, she'll be there. She'll be there if she can. Morning, Mrs. Webb.
Good morning, Mr. Newsom. I know I told you 4 quarts of milk, but I'm hoping you can spare me another.
Yes, some, and 2 of the cream?
Will it start raining again, Mr. Newsom?
Well, just saying to Mrs. Gibbs they should lighten up. Mrs. Newsom told me to tell you that we hope that they'll be very happy, Mrs. Webb. Know that they will.
Thank you. And thank Mrs. Newsom. We're counting on seeing you at the wedding.
Yes, we'll be there. We couldn't miss that.
Well, Ma, day's come. You're losing one of your chicks.
Not start, thank you. I feel like crying every night. Sit down and drink your coffee.
Groom's up shaving himself. There ain't an awful lot to shave. Whistling and singing like he's glad to leave us.
Well, I've washed, ironed some fresh wall clothes for him.
Frank, they're too young. Emily won't think of it and he'll catch his death of cold within a week.
I was remembering my wedding morning, Julia.
Don't start, Frank Gibbs.
I was the scaredest young fella in the state of New Hampshire. I thought I made a mistake for sure. Then I saw you coming down the aisle. I thought you were the prettiest girl I'd ever seen. Only trouble was I'd never seen you before. There I was, standing in the Congregational church, marrying a total stranger.
How do you think I felt? Weddings are terrible things. They're farces, that's what they are. Here, I'll read you something.
Why, Julia Hurst, French toast.
But it ain't hard to make, and I had to do something.
How'd you sleep last night, Julia?
I heard like the hours struck off.
Yes. I get a shock every time I think of George setting out to be a family man. That great family thing. Let me tell you, Julia, there is nothing so terrifying in this world as a son. The relation of father and son is the awkwardest, darndest.
Well, I can tell you, mother and daughter ain't no picnic either.
I have their troubles, I suppose, but that's none of our business. Everyone's got a right to their own troubles.
Oh, yes, people should go through life 2 by 2. Tain't natural to be lonesome.
Julia, do you know one of the things I was scared of when I married you?
Go along with you.
I was afraid we wouldn't have enough material for conversation more than last us a few weeks. I was afraid we'd run out and eat our meals in silence. You and I have been conversing for 20 years now. I mean, noticeable barren spells.
Well, good weather, bad weather, tain't much, but I always think of something to say. Have you heard Rebecca moving around upstairs?
No. Only day a year Rebecca has been managing everybody's business up there. She's hiding in a room. I get the impression she's crying.
Oh, good Lord, this has got to stop. Rebecca, come down and get your breakfast.
Good morning, everybody. Only 5 more hours to live.
George Gibbs, where do you think you're going?
I'm just stepping across the grass to see my girl.
Not without your overshoes on. It's raining torrents outside. You will not leave my house unprepared.
But Ma, it's just a step.
You will catch your death of cold and come all the way through the service.
George, do as mother tells you.
From tomorrow, you can kill yourself in all weathers. While you live under my roof, you will live wisely. Mrs. Webb might not be used to calls at 7 o'clock in the morning. Sit down and drink your
I'll be back in a
coffee.
minute. Good morning, Mother Webb.
Goodness, you frighten me. George, you can come in a minute out of the wet, but you know I can't invite you in.
Why not?
George, you know as well as I do, a groom can't see his bride on his wedding day, not until he sees her in church.
Oh, but that's just superstition. Hello, Mr. Webb.
Good morning, George.
Mr. Webb, you don't believe in that superstition, do you?
There's a lot of common sense in some superstitions, George.
Millions have followed it, George, and you don't want to be the first to fly in the face of custom.
How is Emily?
She hasn't waked yet. I haven't heard a sound from her.
Emily's asleep.
No wonder. We were up till all nights, sewing and packing. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do. You come set yourself down here with Mr. Webb and drink some coffee. There's some bacon too. Oh, I'll go upstairs and check that she doesn't come down and surprise you. Don't be long.
Well, George? How are you? I'm fine. I'm fine. Mr. Webb, what common sense could be being superstition like that?
Well, you see, on her wedding day, a girl's mind apt to be full of clothes and one thing or another. Don't you think that's probably it?
Yes, I never really thought about that.
A girl apt to be a bit nervous on the wedding day, George.
I just wish a fella would get married without all that marching up and down.
Every man has ever lived that has felt that way about it, George, but it hasn't been any use. It's the women folk that have built our weddings, my boy. For a while now, they have all their own way. But man, that's a pretty small little wedding, George. All those women standing shoulder to shoulder, making sure that knots tied in a mighty public way.
But you believe in it, don't you, Mr. Webb?
Oh, yes. Don't misunderstand me, my boy. Marriage is a wonderful thing. Wonderful thing. And don't you forget that, George.
Oh, no, sir, no, sir. How old were you when you got married, Mr. Webb?
Well, you see, I've been away to college, and it took me a while to get settled, but Mrs. Webb, well, she wasn't much older than what Emily is now. Oh, age hasn't much to do with it, George, not compared to other things.
What were you going to say, Mr. Webb?
Oh, I don't know, was I going to say something? George, I was thinking the other day about some advice my father gave me on my wedding day. Charles, he said, Charles, start out early by showing him who's boss. The best thing to do is to give him an order, even if it don't make sense. If anything about your wife irritates you, a conversation or anything like that, just get up and leave the house. That minute later, and oh yes, he said, never let your wife know how much money you have. Never.
Mr. Webb, I don't...
So I took the opposite of my father's advice, and I've been happy ever since. And let that be a lesson to you, George, never to ask advice on personal matters. George, are you gonna raise chickens on your farm?
What?
Are you gonna raise chickens on your farm?
Well, Uncle Luke's never
A
been...
book came into my office the other day on the field system of raising chickens. I want you to read it. I'm thinking of starting off in a small one. I'm going to put an incubator instead
Oh,
of it.
Charles, you aren't talking about that darn incubator again, are you? I thought you two would be discussing things worthwhile.
Well, Myrtle, if you want to give the boy some advice, I'll go upstairs and leave you two alone.
Now, George, Emily has to come downstairs and eat her breakfast. She sends you her love, but she doesn't want to lay eyes on you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, Myrtle, I guess you haven't heard about that older superstition.
What do you mean, Charles?
Since the cavemen, no bridegroom should be allowed to see their father-in-law on the wedding day or near it. Now let that be a lesson to you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Webb. Thank you very much. We'll have to interrupt again here. Thank you. Now, we want to know how all this began. This wedding. This plan to spend a lifetime together. I'm awfully interested in how big things like that begin. You know how it is. You're 21, 22. You make some decisions in life that you're 70. You've been a lawyer for 50 years. And that white-haired woman sat next to you has eaten over 50,000 meals with you. So how do such things begin? George and Emily are going to show you the conversation they had when they knew that, well, as the saying goes, that they were meant for one another. But before they do, I want to ask you to remember what it was like to be very young, and in particular, when you were first in love. When you were like a person sleepwalking through life. You didn't quite see what street you were on, and didn't quite hear every word that was said to you. You were just a little bit crazy. Will you do that for me, please? Now, George and Emily will be coming out of school at 3 o'clock. George has just been elected president of junior class, and as it's June, that means he'll be president of senior class all next year as well. Emily has just been made treasurer and secretary. I don't have to tell you all how important that is. Ah, there they are now, coming down Main Street.
I can't, Louise. I gotta go home. Goodbye. Oh, Ernestine, can you come over tonight and do Latin? Isn't that Cicero just the worst thing? Tell your mother you have to. Goodbye. Goodbye, Helen. Goodbye, Fred.
Can I carry your books home for you, Emily?
Why, thank you. It isn't far.
Oh, say, wait a second, Emily. Hey, Bob, if I'm a little late, start practice without me. And give her some of them long high ones.
Goodbye, Lizzie.
Oh, goodbye, Lizzie. I'm awfully glad you got elected too, Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you.
You've been treating me awfully funny recently.
Well, since you asked, I might as well say it right out. George? Well, goodbye, Miss Corcoran.
Oh, goodbye, Miss Corcoran. What? What is it?
I don't like the whole change that's come over you in the last year. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I have to tell the truth and shame the devil.
A change? Well, what do you mean?
Well, up until a year ago, I used to really like you. And I used to watch you as you did everything. Because we'd been friends for so long. But then you started spending all your time at baseball. And you never stopped to talk to anybody anymore. Not even your own family you didn't. And George, the truth is, you've become awful conceited and stuck up. And all the girls say so. They may not say it to your face, but that's what they say about you behind your back. And it hurts me to hear them say it, but I have to agree with them a little. I'm sorry if that hurts your feelings, but I can't be sorry that I said it.
I'm glad you spoke to me about that, Emily. I never knew that such a change was happening to me. I guess it's hard for a person not to have faults creep into their character.
I always expect a man to be perfect, and I think he should be.
Oh, I don't think it's possible to be perfect, Emily.
Well, my father is. And as far as I can see, your father is. There's no reason on earth why you shouldn't be too.
Well, I feel that it's the opposite, that men are naturally good, but girls are.
Well, you might as well know right now that I'm not perfect. It's not as easy for a girl to be perfect as a man. Us girls are more nervous. Now, I'm sorry that I said all that about you. I don't know what made me say it.
Emily?
Now I can see it isn't the truth at all. And I suddenly feel it isn't that important anyway.
Emily, would you like to come for an ice cream soda with me, or something before we go home?
Oh, I thank you. I would.
Oh, hello, Slocum. How are you? Good afternoon, Mrs. Slocum.
Hello, George. Hello, Emily. What do you have? What? Emily Webb, what have you been crying about?
Everybody says Tom Huckins drives like a crazy man.
Well, you take a glass of water, Emily. I tell you, you gotta look both ways when crossing Main Street. It's worse every year. Now, what do you have?
Oh, I'll have the strawberry phosphate. Thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Morgan.
you know, Emily, have an ice cream soda with me. 2 ice cream sodas, please, Mr. Morgan.
2 ice cream sodas? Yes, sir, yes, sir. I tell you, there are 125 horses in Grover's Corners this minute I'm talking to you. State inspector was in here the other day. Said they're bringing in those automobiles. Best thing to do is just stay at home, that's what I say. Why, I remember when a dog used to be able to go to sleep on Main Street, not get disturbed all day. Well, there they are. Enjoy them. Yes, Mrs. Ellis, what can I do for you?
They're so expensive.
Hey, don't think about that. We're celebrating our election. And, do you know what else I'm celebrating?
No.
I'm celebrating because I got a friend who tells me all the things that ought to be told me.
Now, George, don't you think on that. I don't know why I said it. It isn't true at all. You're...
No, Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me the way you did. But you'll see, Emily, I'm going to change so quick. You bet I'm going to change. And, Emily, I wanted to ask you a favor.
What?
If I go away to agriculture college next year, will you write me a letter once in a while?
I certainly will. I certainly will, George. It certainly seems that being away 3 years, you get out of touch with things. Maybe letters from Grover's Corners wouldn't be so interesting after a while. Grover's Corners isn't that important when you think of all New Hampshire. But I think it's a lovely town.
The day wouldn't come when I wouldn't want to know everything that's going on here, Emily. I know that's true.
Well, I'll try to keep my letters interesting.
Emily, whenever I meet a farmer, I ask him whether he thinks it's important to go to agriculture college to become a good farmer.
Why, George?
Yeah, and some of them say that it's even a waste of time, and that you can get all that stuff from pamphlets that the government hands out. Besides, Uncle Luke's getting old now, and he's just about ready for me to start over at the farm tomorrow if I could.
My.
And like you say, being gone all that time in other places, meeting other people, who's to say that new people are any better than old ones? I bet they almost never are. Emily, I think of you as one of the best friends I've got. I don't need to meet other people in other towns.
But George, maybe it's important for you to go away and learn all that about cattle judging and soils. Of course, I don't know.
Emily, I'm going to make up my mind right now. I won't go. I'll tell Pa about it tonight.
Why, George, I don't see why you have to decide right now. It's a whole year away.
Emily, I'm glad you spoke to me about that fault in my character. What you said was true, but there was one thing wrong in it, and that was when you said, for a year now, I haven't been noticing people, and you, for instance. Why, you said that you were watching me as I was doing everything. Why, I've been doing the exact same thing about you. Why, I thought about you as one of the chief people I thought about. I always made sure we were sitting at the bleachers and who you were with. And for 3 days now, I've been trying to walk home with you, but something's always got in the way. Yesterday, I was standing up against the wall, and you walked home with Miss Corcoran.
Why, George, life's awful funny. How could I have known? Why, I thought
Listen,
that...
Emily, I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to agriculture college next year. I feel once you find a person that you're fond of, who's fond of you too, and likes you enough to be interested in your character, Well, I think that's just as important as colleges. Even more so. That's what I think.
I think that's awful important too.
Emily?
Yes, George?
Emily, if I do make a big change and improve, would you be? I mean, could you be?
I am, George. I always have been.
I guess this is an important talk we've been having then.
Yes. Yes.
Well, wait just a moment and I'll walk you home. Mr. Morgan, I'm gonna have to go home and get you the money to pay for this.
Why? George Gibbs, do you mean to tell me?
Yes, Mr. Morgan, but I have my reasons. Here's my gold watch to keep until I come back with the money.
Well, keep your gold watch, George. I'll trust you.
I'll be 5 minutes.
I'll trust you 10 years, George Gibbs, not a day more. Got all over your shop, Emily?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Morgan. It was nothing.
I'm ready.
Well, now we're ready to get on with the wedding. There are a lot of things that go into a wedding. A lot of thoughts that go into a wedding, too. We can't get them all into one wedding, naturally. And especially not one at Grover's Falls, where they're awfully plain and short. In this wedding, I play the minister, which gives me the right to say a few more things about it. For a while now, the play gets pretty serious. You see, some churches say that marriage is sacrament. I don't quite know what that means myself, but I can guess. It's like what Mrs. Gibbs said a few minutes ago. People were made to live 2 by 2. This is a good wedding. But even at a good wedding, people are so put together that there's a lot of confusion way down deep in people's minds. And we thought that that ought to be part of our play too. The real hero of this scene isn't on stage at all. And you all know who that is. It's like what one of those European fellows once said. Every child born into this world is nature's attempt at a perfect human being. Well, we've seen nature pushing and contriving for some time now. We all know she's interested in quantity, but I reckon she's interested in quality too. That's why I'm in the ministry. And let's not forget all the other witnesses at this wedding. The ancestors. Millions of them. Most of them set out to live life 2 by 2 also. Millions of them. Well, that's into my sermon, which wasn't very long anyway.
eat her breakfast just as she's done for 17 years, and now she's off to do it in somebody else's house. I suppose that's it. And Emily, she suddenly said, I can't eat another mouthful. And she put her head down on the table and she cried. Oh, I've got to say it. You know, there's something downright cruel about the way we send our girls into marriage this way. It's cruel, I know, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything about it. I went into it blind as a bat myself. I just hope one of her girlfriends has told her a thing or two about it. The whole world's wrong. That's what's the matter. Oh, here they come.
All right, settle down. Enough of that. There used to be an awful lot of that in weddings of old, Rome and later. We're more civilized now. So they say.
George, what's the matter?
Ma, I don't want to grow old. Why is everybody pushing me so?
George, you wanted this.
No, Ma, listen to me.
No, George, you're a man.
No, Ma, listen to me. Why do I have to keep telling you? All I want to do is to be a fella.
George, if anybody should hear you, I'm ashamed of you.
Wait. There's Emily.
Oh, George gave me such a turn.
Sure, Ma, I'm getting married.
Let me breathe a minute.
Every Thursday night, Ma. Say Thursday nights, because I'm going to come over with Emily, and we're going to have dinner together. You can count on it. Oh, Mom, what are you crying for? Come on. We've got to get ready for this.
Oh, I never felt so alone in my whole life. And George over there looking so... I hate him. I wish I were dead. Papa! Papa!
Now, Emily, don't get upset.
But Papa, I don't want to get married.
Everything's gonna be all right.
Can't I just stay for a while just as I am? Let's go away.
No, just stop and think a minute.
Don't you remember you used to say to me, all the time you used to say, all the time that I was your girl? There must be lots of places we could go to. I'll work for you. I could keep the house.
No, Emily, you mustn't think such things. You're just nervous. George. George, come here a minute. Why, you're marrying the best young fellow in the world. George is a fine fellow.
But Papa,
George, giving away my daughter. Do you think you can take care of her?
I will, Mr. Webb. I'll try. Emily, I'll try. I love you, Emily. I need you.
then if you love me, help me. All I want is for someone to love me.
I will, Emily. I'll try.
And I mean forever. Do you hear me? Forever and ever.
Come. They're waiting for us. Now you know everything's gonna be all right. Come quick.
a good wedding? Don't you? Doesn't she make a lovely bride?
I do.
And you, Emily. Take George.
Don't know when I've seen such a lovely wedding. But I always cry. I don't know why, but I always cry. I like seeing people happy. Don't you? Oh, I think it's lovely.
I married over 200 couples in my day. Do I believe in it? I don't know. M marries N. Millions of them. The cottage, the go-kart, the Sunday afternoon drives in the Ford, the first rheumatism, the grandchildren, the second rheumatism, the deathbed, the reading of the will. Once, in 1,000 times, it's interesting. Well, let's have Mendelssohn's Wedding March.
Aren't they a lovely couple? I'm sure they'll be happy. I always say happiness. That's the great thing. The important thing is to be happy.
That's the end of the second act, folks. 10 minutes intermission.